How was your day? Fine. 9 words total, and the conversation is already over. You pour a glass of water, your child wanders off to their room, and somewhere underneath that one-word answer is an entire day you'll never actually hear about. The friend who left them out at recess, the moment they were proud of themselves, the thing that scared them a little. You didn't fail as a parent. You asked a question that was never built to open a door. Maybe you've noticed this happens almost every day. And maybe you've even started to wonder if your child is just naturally private, or going through a phase, or pulling away from you. Before you land on any of those explanations, it's worth considering a much simpler one. The question itself might be the problem, not your child, and not your relationship. In the next few minutes, we're going through 9 questions that actually get kids talking. Not because they're clever tricks, but because each one is built around how children's brains actually process and share emotion. These aren't questions pulled from a random list either. Each one targets a different piece of emotional development, from noticing feelings to understanding other people. And by the end you'll have a small toolkit instead of just one worn-out opener. And near the end, there's one question that tends to work even when nothing else does. The kind you can reach for on the hardest days. Chapter 1. Why "How was your day" doesn't work. Here's the problem with most connection questions. They're closed even when they don't sound like it. How was your day? Technically invites an answer, but it doesn't specify what kind of answer, so a child's brain, especially a young one, takes the fastest exit available. Fine isn't a lie. It's the path of least resistance. Children, especially under age 7, don't yet have a fully developed ability to scan an entire day and summarize it on demand. That's an executive functioning skill that's still under construction, and it doesn't fully mature until well into adolescence. When you ask a huge, open-ended question with no entry point, you're essentially asking their brain to search an entire library with no index, no categories, and no idea where to start. So it gives up and hands you the shortest possible answer instead. Not because they don't want to connect with you, but because the question is, developmentally speaking, too big. The questions that actually work do the opposite. They point at one specific moment, one specific feeling, or one specific person. Something small enough for a developing brain to grab onto quickly, the way a single labeled folder is far easier to find than an entire unsorted filing cabinet. That's the pattern behind everything we're about to go through, and once you see it, you'll start noticing it in every question that actually gets a real answer out of your child. Chapter 2. Questions that open the day. The first 3 questions work best right after school, at dinner, or during a car ride. Anywhere your child isn't facing you directly, since side-by-side conversation tends to lower a child's guard more than face-to-face conversation does. We'll get into why that matters more later, but keep it in mind as you picture using these. Question 1. What made you laugh today? This works because laughter is a specific, memorable event, unlike an entire day. It's also a low-stakes question, so kids answer it without feeling like they're being evaluated, and more often than not, the small funny moment they mention opens the door to a bigger story you never would have heard otherwise. A joke a classmate told, something silly that happened at lunch, a moment that had nothing to do with grades or behavior at all. Question 2. Who did you sit with at lunch? This isn't really about lunch. It's a gentle way of checking in on their social world without asking the much heavier "do you have friends?", which can feel like an interrogation and often gets defensive one-word answers in return. Asking about a concrete detail like seating gives you a window into their social life without your child feeling like they're being assessed on their popularity. Question 3. What was something that felt hard today? Notice this doesn't ask, "Did anything bad happen?", which invites a yes or no shutdown. Something that felt hard assumes there was at least one difficult moment, which there almost always is, and gives your child permission to name it without it meaning the whole day was bad. This small shift in phrasing, assuming difficulty exists rather than asking if it exists, consistently produces more honest answers, because it removes the pressure of deciding whether something even counts as worth mentioning. Chapter 3. Questions that build empathy. The next 3 questions do something different. They invite your child to think about other people's feelings, which is one of the core building blocks of emotional intelligence, and one that doesn't develop automatically. It has to be practiced the same way any other skill does. Question 4. How do you think your friend felt when that happened? This is perspective-taking practice disguised as casual conversation. You're not lecturing about empathy, and you're not turning a story into a teaching moment that makes your child feel like they did something wrong. You're simply giving their brain a low-pressure rep at imagining someone else's internal experience, which over hundreds of small repetitions becomes a genuine, automatic skill. Question 5. What do you think I was feeling when that happened? This one is often skipped, but it matters because it shows your child that you have feelings too, and that noticing them is safe, not scary. Kids who never get asked this can grow up assuming parents are simply either fine or mad, with nothing in between, a flat, two-dimensional view of the adults around them that doesn't match reality and doesn't model emotional complexity. Question 6. If you could go back, is there anything you'd do differently? This is not the same as, what did you do wrong? It's future-oriented and non-punitive, which means kids are far more likely to actually reflect honestly instead of shutting down in defense. A child who feels safe enough to answer this honestly is building one of the most valuable emotional skills there is. The ability to self-reflect without spiraling into shame. Chapter 4. Questions that build self-awareness. The final 3 questions turn the lens inward, helping your child notice their own internal state, which research consistently links to better emotional regulation later in life, and which most children are never explicitly taught to do. Question 7. Where do you feel that in your body? Emotions live physically before children can name them verbally. A tight chest, a hot face, a heavy stomach. Teaching a child to notice the physical sensation gives them an early warning system they can use long before they have the vocabulary to say, I'm anxious. And it's a skill that tends to stay with people well into adulthood, long after the specific memory of learning it has faded. Question 8. What do you need right now? Space, a hug, or to talk? This hands your child a small menu of options instead of forcing them to articulate a need they may not even have words for yet. A young child who is upset often doesn't know what they need. They just know something feels wrong. Giving them 3 concrete choices makes the problem solvable instead of overwhelming. Over time, kids who are regularly asked this get noticeably better at identifying and asking for what they need on their own, without needing the menu at all. Question 9. What's one thing you're proud of from today? This closes the loop on a positive note and, over time, trains a child's brain to actively scan their day for moments of competence, a habit that directly supports self-esteem that's built on evidence, not empty praise. This is different from telling a child good job after everything they do, which research suggests can actually make praise feel meaningless over time. Asking them to identify their own proud moment builds something sturdier. The ability to recognize their own worth without needing someone else to hand it to them. Chapter 5. How to actually use these. A few of these questions, asked at the wrong moment, will fall completely flat, so timing and tone matter as much as the wording, and this is the part most advice about connection questions leaves out entirely. First, avoid asking any of these the second your child gets in the car or walks through the door. That's called the re-entry window, and most kids need a few minutes of decompression before they can access language about their day at all. A snack and 5 quiet minutes will get you a better answer than an immediate question ever will. The same way you probably don't want to be asked detailed questions about your workday the moment you walk in exhausted. Second, ask sideways, not head-on. In the car, during a walk, while doing dishes together, or during any shared task. Activities where you're physically side by side rather than facing each other consistently produce longer, more honest answers because it removes the intensity of direct eye contact. Direct face-to-face questioning can feel like an interview to a child, even when that's the last thing you intend. Third, resist the urge to fix, correct, or follow up with, well, you should have, the moment your child answers. The second a child learns that honesty leads to a lecture, they stop being honest, and they start giving you the answer they think will end the conversation fastest, which is exactly the fine you were trying to get away from in the first place. Your job in that moment is only to receive the answer, not evaluate it. Save the guidance, if it's truly needed, for a separate, calmer conversation later. Fourth, don't expect every question to land every day. Some evenings your child will be tired, distracted, or simply not in the mood to talk, and pushing harder in that moment usually backfires. The value of these questions isn't in any single answer. It's in the pattern of consistently offering the door, whether or not they walk through it that particular night. Chapter 6. The one question that works every time. Here's the payoff. If you only remember one question from this entire video, make it this one. What was the best part and the hardest part of today? This single question does almost everything the other 9 do at once. It's specific instead of vague. It gives your child 2 clear entry points instead of one overwhelming blank page. And by pairing best with hardest, it quietly teaches your child that a day can hold both a good moment and a hard moment at the same time, that life isn't simply good days and bad days, but a mix every single day. That's a sophisticated emotional idea, and this question hands it to a 5-year-old in 11 words, without a single lecture attached to it. It won't work every single time. Some days the answer really will be nothing or a shrug, and that's fine. The goal was never a perfect answer every night. The goal is building a pattern your child can rely on, that you ask, that you listen without fixing, and that their inner world is something you're genuinely curious about, not just something you're managing on a checklist between dinner and bedtime. That consistency is what actually builds emotional intelligence over time. Not any single perfect question, not a script you follow word for word, but the years of small, low-pressure moments where a child learns their feelings are welcome in the room, and that the adults who love them are actually curious, not just checking a box. If tonight you only ask one new question at dinner, make it that one. And notice what happens when you simply wait, without filling the silence, for the answer to come.